Business has been slow in a lot of places, not, however, at the Port of Los Angeles. Welcome back to Inside the Issues. I'm Alex Cohen. October was the best single month in the port's 114-year history. For more on what is coming, what's going, and why there is so much of it all, we are joined once again by Gene Seroka, Executive Director of the Port of Los Angeles and Chief Logistics Officer for the City of LA. It's great to have you back with us.
Thank you, Alex.
Now, clearly we can't talk about the entire 114-year history of the Port of LA, but I'm wondering if you could maybe start off with a brief recap of what this year, 2020, has been like, because from what I'm understanding, it did not start off as a busy year by any means. Take us through the course of these past 12 months.
That's right. We got off to an extremely slow start once the COVID-19 virus began moving through China. The central government shut down most of its population and commerce, including factories that we normally buy from on a regular basis. And as we looked into the abyss back in March, we moved only about 450,000 container units. We're now doing, on average, more than double that today.
Wow, that's a whole lot of cargo. What's your understanding of why we have seen such an increase? Because I think to some people it might seem bizarre with unemployment at all-time highs. Why is it that there's so much cargo coming in?
Well, I think number one is that most of us have been buying a lot of tangible goods, whether it be online, at the retails, the home improvement stores, and we're not buying services. We're not taking family vacations on airplanes or staying at hotels. We're not going to ball games or the movies. So that discretionary income is going into those retail type goods, and we're buying them at a quicker pace than we ever have before. Even the early returns on some of the internet buying during the Thanksgiving holiday leading into Cyber Monday have been off the charts good for the retail community. So what we're seeing right now is a replenishment of stock that's been taking place since June or July because of that heavy buying pattern that we as U.S. consumers have displayed, and now commingled with a year-end holiday sales number that may be much higher than even the experts anticipated several months back.
So what do we as consumers need to keep in mind this holiday season, given everything that you've talked about? Because I think we've seen, at the beginning, it was toilet paper that was hard to get a hold of. And then right at the beginning of the school year, around late August, early September, it was impossible to find a desk. What are some of the hard things to come by now? And when might people want to kind of start planning their shopping, knowing that it's going to be a busy year at the ports?
The earlier, the better, Alex, and that's what most of the folks have been telling us as well. We're seeing commodities such as furniture, both indoor and outdoor, athletic and athleisure wear, as well as other sporting goods, in addition to home appliances. And in all those categories, it really does typify what this stay-at-home or work-from-home lifestyle has meant to many of us as American consumers. We're seeing now ship dates with many of our providers like FedEx, UPS, and even the Amazon services telling us, if you want your goods by a certain date, here's your cutoff time. And I think we should all go by that expert advice that's being given to us by the logistics community.
And maybe you could explain for us in kind of layman's terms, because when you see these images of these massive ships coming in with all these, cargo boxes stacked on top of each other, it kind of boggles the mind to think about how you coordinate all the coming and going. And I know you use technology these days. You're able to do it a lot better than you might have in the past. Talk me through what it's like to make all the comings and goings work out smoothly.
Well, it truly is an orchestra effect because you've got so many participants. There are more than 200,000 companies every year that ship cargo through the Port of Los Angeles, and no one company has more than a 5% market share. It's also interesting in that we have private sector providers in rail, truck, terminal operations, and those large ships that you mentioned. So all of us have to work in concert and pull in the same direction. And I've been so heartened through this pandemic that the aforementioned and our various labor groups, from longshore to electricians and so many others have really been pulling in the same direction. It's more cargo than we've ever handled at this port, more cargo that we've ever handled in this country over this time frame. So to be in a position where we're at right now, it takes a little bit longer to get cargo out of the port, takes a little bit longer for that retailer to return the empty container. But all things considered, I think we're doing a pretty good job. There are items we need to sharpen, and we're working very closely with our partners every day to do just that.
And are there times, because it sounds to me that what you're experiencing there at the port, it's a little bit like what many of us here in Southern California experience when we head out into the freeways. There's more cars out there than you can possibly hold on a freeway. Things come to a bit of a standstill. It sounds like that's been happening sometimes at the port as well. What are all the other systems? And you mentioned some of them that need to be in place, and how much longer can you handle this kind of traffic?
Oh, we can keep handling this type of traffic, and we will continue to refine. There was a time, Alex, about 11 years ago, where moving 8 million containers through this port of Los Angeles brought us to a standstill. And as we look now to try to approach 10 million container units here in the not too distant future, we will have levels of fluidity and ease of access that'll be unrivaled. And a lot of it is driven through technology, having a deeper line of sight as to the cargo that's coming our way, so we can not only prepare our landside operations, but our skilled labor. And everyone from Customs and Border Protection to the U.S. Coast Guard, the people who have to be on the ground to manage the protocols and the flow of cargo, also benefit by having this early notification of cargo. Now, that needs to be spread over a wider geography. More people need to participate. But the early traction we've seen from technology, giving us the insight as to how we need to be ready, is something that will really continue to grow here at the Port of L.A.
Mr. Seroka, as I mentioned, you are also the Chief Logistics Officer for the City of LA. This was a new title folks might remember that you earned at the beginning of this pandemic. We're starting to hear once again of these huge increases in cases of coronavirus and hospitalizations, concerns that there won't be enough beds, enough people to actually tend to things like ventilators. How are we doing in terms of supply, and what does the outlook look like as we head into what could be a very dark and difficult winter?
Yeah, I think we've exceeded expectations, but there's so much more work to do. To date, Alex, we've distributed more than 3.6 million units of personal protective equipment to more than 36 Los Angeles area hospitals and 150 skilled nursing facilities. We were never meant to be everyone's answer. We wanted to help bridge the gaps that existed in hospital supply chains, in manufacturers' capabilities, and the distribution networks that existed. And I think with the great support of the Hospital Association of Southern California and so many public and private entities, we have begun to fill that gap. We've built a stockpile here in Los Angeles that will continue to be rotated out with new inventory coming our way. So the goods that are passed to our frontline medical experts will be fresh and appropriate from a standards perspective and medical safety looks that these professionals so poorly need at this point in time. So we're continuing to edge our way forward. We've got a group of maybe 24 volunteers here at the Port of LA that are working on the project of Logistics Victory Los Angeles. And the partnerships that we've developed beyond the sheer procurement of goods into the area of donations has also been uplifting. And it's companies like shipping giants, CMA CGM, Toyota Motor Manufacturing, Harbor Freight and Tools, Operation USA right here in Wilmington, and so many others that have contributed items like face masks and gloves, operational gowns, examination gowns, and other important materials that we pass on. If they're donated to us, there's no cost to the hospitals. If we're buying these goods, it's no markup and no margin delivered to these frontline facilities.
And finally, if we could just spend a few moments talking about big changes that are on the horizon in Washington, D.C. when it comes to both personal protective equipment and cargo coming in and out of our port. I would imagine that a lot of this will be affected by who is sitting in the White House. Of course, Joe Biden, a very different person with very different policies than Donald Trump. What is your outlook for 2021 given the change in administration?
Well, Alex, first, we're very encouraged because it will give us a seat at the table to talk about all of these important issues and have our voice heard, hopefully in shaping policy for the future. It will also give us a voice on the international stage once again, similar to what we had during the Obama administration, as we shape trade policy and try to create more cargo flow that means more jobs here on the ground at America's port.
Gene Seroka, thank you so much. I wish you a safe and smooth sailing holiday season.
Thank you, Alex. All the best.